Thank you for joining us. You're listening to the St. John's Farmers Market Radio Almanac. This is a show about business and market culture in and around St. John's, Newfoundland. This program is produced and recorded at CHMR FM 93.5 FM in St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador, and is aired on other great stations in the province and elsewhere in the country. It can also be heard online at www.chmr.ca. I'm your host, Matthew LeDrew, owner and operator at Engine Books, the province's fastest growing independent publisher of books.
Welcome to another fine episode of the show. We are here this time with Travis House of Houseless Poetry, author of books like Peace Be the Journey and All I Brought Back. He is a very, very storied traveler throughout this great country. He has written many books about his experiences traveling the country and poems and such like that. Very like the definition of indie author and indie poet. You can often see him at the St. John's Farmers Market on an old typewriter, typing away and producing his works of poetry live, his art live. Thank you for joining us, Travis.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
No worries, no worries. Tell me a bit about your art and how you kind of found yourself on this journey a little bit, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so I spent a great deal of my time hitchhiking Canada the past 6-7 years, I guess. And I used to busk with my mandolin to keep my adventures going, keep the money flowing, as you will. But there's also a part of me that was sort of desperate to share these stories I'd end up collecting. Just hitchhiking is such a story-based thing. You're being shoved, people's stories are being shoved down your throat the whole time. So I started writing poetry about it, and then it occurred to me I could set up in a park and just write poetry in a park rather than play some music. So yeah, it was really was just a drive to tell stories, and then it was a drive to feed myself. And so I set up. Very first time I set up actually was there in the pedestrian mall. The very first year we had that here in St. John's. And I was like, all right, well, before I do this next travel, like this big next trip, let me see if it actually works. So I set up down there and was met with such overwhelming support financially and emotionally that I was like, oh, I think I might have something here. Like this might be one of the most unique and lucrative things like ideas I may have ever had.
Well, like it's something it is unique. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's one thing to be able to like play a song at will and stuff like that, and kind of like on the spot entertainment that buskers do, kind of thing. That very unique experience is one thing, but not every writer can just be given a topic and write a coherent piece of art on it on the spot, Travis. That's not
perhaps
perhaps
I think that most writers wouldn't let themselves, because they're already too hypercritical of their own writing and self-conscious and riddled with, I mean, we are all riddled with neuroses. But like, I don't like everything that I put out there in those things. Obviously some of them are I know what I feel about everything. So if someone asks me to write a poem about a fire truck, I have something in my head about what I feel about a fire truck, sure. But it's this action of turning my brain off and just letting the automatic writing technique kind of take over. And usually it's passable. I mean, I guess most people would say it's all passable. They're very kind, but it's this kind of thoughtlessness or thoughtful thoughtlessness or something. I don't know how to describe it.
No, it's great. It's great. You're able to like tap into the muse right there on command, which is amazing skill to have. Like it's something I advocate. Like I get fundamentally upset at people who say they're writers and don't spend any time writing. You know what I mean? It's like, come on, man. Like, what you doing?
Yeah, it's a hell of a practice, and it's such a ritual thing as well. Once I sit down at that table, it's almost like a hyper focus or something once people start showing up.
Well, that's wonderful, Travis. Travis, if you were trapped on a desert island and could only take 3 books or movies with you to keep you company for the rest of time, what would they be?
Dharma Bums, Jack Kerouac. They'd all be books, by the way. Dharma Bums, Kerouac. I'd probably take Hatchet, my favorite childhood book of all time.
Okay.
And let's see, Dharma Bums and the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying.
Okay. No one ever thinks about practical things. Like, you got to take The Stand by Stephen King because it's a lot of pages and you'll need to burn them to stay alive.
Right. Of course.
Yeah.
I'm the desert island is kind of a problem. There is no birch bark to really get your fire going. Hey.
Who inspired you to start your business, if any other person did?
I don't know if anyone really did it. Like, it was kind of a desperation thing. It was I've kind of lived in, relative poverty my whole life and kind of dug it and kind of took a vow of poverty, what I called a vow of poverty, when I was like 19, and swore that I would not chase money and I'd only chase experiences. So I chased money long enough to send me to Europe for a few months alone. And that was when I was a kid, and I've been chasing that ever since. So it was yeah, I
Are
don't know
you SpiderMan?
no,
Because
no,
like it sounds very much like that vow of poverty, and like like, oh, I'm only gonna do experience. Sounds a lot like what you're saying is action is your reward.
yeah, well, absolutely. It's experience. Life for me is finite, of course, like it is for everyone, but I think about death every single day, and I make sure I think about death every single day to keep me on track and to just do the right thing. And sometimes that means well, my youth, it meant not chasing money and some abject idea of success and just filling my soul with experiences until I thought of something better.
All right. I like it. If you were a jam, what kind of jam would you be?
Ooh, good question. Probably like blueberry,
Blueberry.
probably
Why?
blueberry, because they don't pop out on the branch as much. You know what I mean? You can tell a strawberry or a raspberry on a branch. Sometimes you got to look a little closer for the blueberries. I feel like that's a little bit more of me.
I like it. That's cool. Cool. Travis, how'd you select the name for your business, Houseless Poetry?
Actually, that came as a kind of a nickname I ended up with while I was traveling, and I kind of started a YouTube channel because I also made a 2 hour long hitchhiking video, Newfoundland to BC, every ride, every time, every camp spot, everything. Filmed the whole thing and called the YouTube channel Houseless. And then I just kind of kept it because it was just too good. It worked with my last name. It worked with my kind of ethos. It's just kind of like made for me.
Oh yeah, no, it definitely does. It's to the point where like you'd think that it wasn't your birth name. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
so good. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. I just kind
Yeah.
of stumbled upon it.
Travis, do you read any reviews of your work? And if so, how do you deal with good ones or bad ones mentally? I mean,
No, I haven't read. I don't know if anyone has reviewed my work at all. Anyone who's read it has been just kind and come up and tell me they dig it. But I tend to not put any weight into what other people think of pretty much anything. There are some respected figures I would listen to,
why,
but for
thank
the
you.
most part, yeah. Yeah, but for the most part, like especially with poetry, and I also tell this to people, like people don't get to tell you if your poetry's bad.
Yeah.
Sorry, but they don't. Your poetry is your poetry. It's an extension of your soul, and they can not like the way you structure your sentences. They can think that the words you choose are bland, but it doesn't matter. They don't get to say nothing about it.
Yeah,
And I mean,
exactly.
they can, but
Yeah.
try not to internalize it.
Well, I know a certain 9-year-old girl that has a bunch of your poems like framed in rose gold frames on her wall.
And that means more to me than any critic review you could possibly, find me.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Does your work energize you or does it exhaust you? When you're writing, does it kind of pump you up and at the end of like you've got this creative energy, or is it just draining?
That is a good question. Most days it's energizing, but it's not to the point where I go home and write. It does kind of shag up my writing for the rest of the day because there's no way I could go home and start working on my own projects after a day at the market. But the only times I'm drained is when there are multiple markets in a row. Like Christmas time is crazy. Like I'm brain dead and I'm worried about what people are actually getting on the paper because I don't remember any of the poems I write anyway for people, but much less so when I'm like 6 hours into one of those big markets at the whatever, one of those stadiums or something.
Yeah.
So it's both. Most farmers markets I come home with a huge smile on my face, but if there's like a double market at the end of Sunday, I'm pretty brain dead.
Yeah.
It takes a lot showing up for people like that. Some people really come at you with some heavy stuff too. It's not like everybody wants poems about their grandma's birthday. There's some pretty heavy, really vulnerable things that people trust me with that are the ones that I'm most excited for, but are also the ones that take the most out of me. But I love them.
So what does success look like for you?
Success is just a good choice every day for me. I mean, that's what I strive for. It's one little good choice that brings me closer to some sort of equanimity or some sort of peace that I can share. I mean, economically speaking, eventually it's looking like some sort of self-sustainability, move out of the city, try to, grow some vegetables, try to get back into hunting, do the whole, self-sustainable racket because, it's civilization is not showing hopeful signs for me. It doesn't look like it has a place for me. So I feel, I'm a little bit of going off the grid, evade the tornado type of thing.
Okay, interesting. Like it. You're gonna be one of those reclusive people we read about where it's like, oh, he's put out another book, everybody come grab it. I wonder what he thinks. And meanwhile, you go in your it's like what I love is that I know you kind of, you know what I mean? Like think we've become friends and stuff like that. And I picture you becoming a reclusive writer and everyone in the community going like, oh my God, Travis Houseless put out a new book. Let's read it and to figure out what he thinks. And I'll just be in the back of the writer's retreat giggling like a schoolgirl because I'll know that if we could do a zip zoom to you or zip cut to you in your little bunker, what you're thinking, and see into your head, it'd just be the Meow Mix commercial. Just nothing.
It's just how much wood do I have to cut today? That's all I'm thinking.
Yeah. Travis, if you could tell your younger self, your younger artist self, any one thing, what would it be?
Share it for sure. Share it as quickly as possible and hold no attachment to it. Once it's out there, it's no longer yours. See how people feel about it. You never know. I've been incredibly blessed by messages and people who have told me my whole adult life, because of kind of how I've been living, that they're inspired by me and want to do what you do when I'm just so scared, or oh, I got this job, or I got all that stuff that makes my eyes roll because it's just excuses, and they know it's excuses. And I'm just human. I'm not special. I just made choices that brought me here, and everyone's capable of choices. So it's share your writing, share your passion. Don't hold on to it. It's not yours after you let it go. And hopefully you can bring some more people along the way and show people there's much more to life than, this default route that so many people get caught in. And if you dig the default route, then God bless you. But when you don't dig it, and you got to listen to that.
Yep. Big time. I agree. Travis House, what is an early experience you can remember, and you can define early however you like, where you learned that language has power?
Oh yeah, I definitely, being a kid, growing up in Kilbride, being small, I'm a short dude, I'm not imposing whatsoever, which works for hitchhiking, but bullied heavily and figured out pretty quick that with words, you didn't need to always fight. Now I ended up learning how to fight and spending 10 years in martial arts and everything else just to back it up. But it was talking down people who were ready to either, fight me or one of my friends, or using ridicule sometimes to take the air out of their balloon. That's when I first realized, like, oh, okay, there are strategies to employ here that it's not all physical based, and with a pretty sharp tongue, you can talk your way out of a lot. And even in foreign countries and stuff, where even they might not even understand your language, your cadence, and your body language, and even without words, you can manipulate people a lot in terms of getting yourself out of danger.
What is your work kryptonite? If you're trying to work away at your art and this thing happens, the work is now done.
Probably a good like documentary on YouTube or something that just like I shouldn't even have that tab open when I'm working, but every now and then I'll put some music on there. And yeah, I'm a sucker for like, is this Atlantis? So like a lot of the, pseudo intellectual, pseudo scientific, speculative documentaries. I'm a sucker for those. They get me every time. I love that. And I mean, I'm notoriously distractible, but yeah, I can get sucked into some stuff.
I always wonder if, like, in 1,000 years, if anything that we've produced modernly is going to be thought of like that. Like, if there's going to be like, have we discovered Edward Cullen's last grave? I'm like, no, because that's a fictional character. But in 1,000 years, they might not realize that.
And I feel like just the exponential growth of technology, 1,000 years is, we might end up wiping ourselves off of the planet's butt, honestly, by that time.
Planet might be happier for it, but let's
Oh, listen, yeah, she grows and she contracts. She knows nothing other than change herself.
Yeah, I love that. There's a wonderful Neil deGrasse Tyson quote where he had to like push back against someone where like they're like, we're trying to save the planet, and he was like, no, we're trying to save humanity. The planet will be fine.
Yeah, how arrogant of us.
Yeah, the planet existed before we're here and will still be there after we're gone, and might be better off.
It's fascinating how much of a flash in the pan we actually are. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, people get very caught up in, but just in the past 150 years, we're almost a different race than what we were before. Like, not anatomically speaking, obviously, but the integration of technology, how we're basically already cyborgs. We all carry around computers in our pocket that we hardly know how to get through the day with.
You and I wear glasses.
That's another good point. Yeah,
that's just cybernetics. I mean, we like once something's been around for long enough, we cease to think of it as technology. But a fork is technology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. That's very true.
I find it this subject has the possibility to bring out the nihilist in me. I like to think that I'm a happy, bouncy person, and sometimes like I'm on these subjects I'm not. Like have you ever looked at like a 3D representation of population growth over the course of the world? Like, okay, we started here, scientists think, and then you just watch, like, say it's like red dots on the planet Earth spreading out, and you just watch humanity spread. You know what I mean? Like, oh, how population spread until we're basically everywhere. Then go look at a time-lapse video of mold spreading over an orange. Realize it looks about the same.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
and then try to convince the mold to not destroy the orange, because if it destroys the orange, it itself will die. And you can't, because the mold's too stupid, and that's when you realize it's all futile.
It's fair. That's totally fair. Now, there is this study I read super recently that says population growth is heavily stagnating. And there's this scientist, what's his name? I don't remember, but he was saying this may be the most people on Earth for the rest of humanity, period. Like, there seems to be, I guess it's to the point where a lot less people are having a lot less children, but he seems to think that this might be the most people on Earth possibly ever for the rest of humanity's like experience.
Well, I hope so. There's more people alive today than there have been throughout all of human history.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope we've also hit a precipice. That being said, he was kind of going the other way with it. We're like, you don't want the fight for humanity's continuation, but I think we're millennia away from that if we like I said, if technology doesn't manage to throw us into a dystopian hellhole.
Lovely conversation we're having.
Oh, this is what I live for.
Yeah. Travis, if magic was real, don't get me started. Don't argue that. We're just, if magic was real and there was a cauldron in front of you in the midst of a spell right now, and you put everything that is your work, your body of work, went into that cauldron, and a flash of light happened, and through that spell, your work as a whole had been transformed into an animal. What animal is popping out of the cauldron?
That's a really good question.
Is it?
Provokes, well, it is in the sense that it provokes thought and consideration. Man, like part of me wants to say, like a blue jay, just for the freedom aspect of it.
I like that.
But another part wants to say like dung beetle.
Dung beetle. Technically, that's an insult. It's an insect, so you can't.
Right. Yeah. I can't use the dung beetle. Well, some like terribly ugly marsupial that I don't even know of or something. Some underthought animal that would probably be eaten in the streets of some Southeast Asian country. Just absolutely indescript. I don't know. Like, yeah, it's nice. I love my freedom and that exploration, like adventure and all this other stuff. But in the end, I'm going to die and all these experiences will, will just fade away as well. So it's this all for naught type of feeling I have about life, which gives me such vibrance for life. Don't mistake me. But yeah, that's hard because I want to be all poetic and love that, my work kind of represents something, but in representing something, it also has to contend with its own finite nature and just understated blah. Like, it's only words, it's only experiences. I'm not special. I don't know. I fight with that question a lot.
Travis, what's the best money you ever spent on your art? On whatever it is, it can be anything, it can be a chicken sandwich, as long as in your head you were like, oh, it's okay, this is for my art. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Oh, I don't know. The ferry ticket off the island.
Okay. Yeah.
I wouldn't be who I am today if I didn't spend so much damn time living out of my backpack in ditches in Canada and the United States and chasing whatever dream I should have at that moment. That's me. That's what made me. I'd just be some, nondescript human being, just probably working in.
When you do decide to eventually go off the grid, consider all the like Newfoundland ghost towns out there where there are just houses and structures that are just there. Like, think of it. Like, think about someone going to what they think is a ghost town and finding you, beard down to your ankles, typewriter, thousands of pages of poetry that you've put on like paper that you made yourself while pulping, and you're just like, get out of my office, chasing them down the beach. Not a stitch of clothes on you. That's a wonderful story.
That's right up my alley, especially if I could build it as it is. It's tough, right? Because you want to be, I'm still young. I still want to be close to like what's happening and stuff. But the older I get, the more and more I realize that I've lived that. I've had my fun there. And I'm just trying to get a bit of peace out of it.
Ellen is trying so hard not to die laughing just to my right now. It's just like, what? Oh my. A beard is nature's loincloth.
I wouldn't want to be out there alone. That's the other thing. That was kind of like one of the biggest realizations ever after all this time on the road alone. It was just like, that Chris McCandless quote, that Into the Wild guy who wrote in his journal right before he died, happiness is nothing unless shared. That hit me so hard that I didn't, it almost like took me out. It really did. And I had to learn like, okay, that means I can write poetry to share it and it's not for nothing. But then when we talk about, moving to Outport, Newfoundland, it's like there's no way I could do that alone and still stay sane, and a dog isn't enough. So
Yeah.
there
Yep.
still must be a human connection after all.
Yep. Okay. Travis, what kind of research do you do, and how long do you spend researching before working on a project, if at all?
Yeah, I guess I don't really, because of what I write, I don't have to research anything other than
You,
travel routes. And
you could argue that your entire like hitchhiking and traveling and all that stuff is your research,
yeah, and I mean, before then, it was learning a lot about just survival, wilderness survival, and such like that, because I did spend a lot of my time practicing and learning wilderness survival techniques. So there's a lot of that. I definitely consider that research, and just being on the road. Every hitchhike ride was research. It was um, the best real taste of humanity anyone could get. You don't get a clue of how the real people think on the ground when you're on Facebook reading everyone's high octane takes on everything under the sun. You That's not people. They would never say that to your face, or like in front of someone
Un-
who actually has done the research. That none of their
unless
arguments.
you're me.
Sure, there are exceptions.
The amount of people who go like, oh no, you're really like that. Like, I'm like, yes. Fear me.
Yeah, there certainly are exceptions, but most people just want to live their life and be nice, and they don't want to tear down the world, or build up something utopian, or like all this stuff that people get on with online is so funny. And 99% of the people are not like that, and the 90% of them don't even vote or do anything with like politically active, so you would never know how these people actually felt. I like them the most. They're the forgotten, in my opinion, like politically and and spiritually and philosophically forgotten. And I don't want to forget them, because they're some of the smartest and wisest people I've ever met.
Yeah, absolutely. Okie dokie. Travis, have you ever read anything that made you think differently about your work?
Yeah, definitely. When I read Bukowski specifically, that that gives me almost permission to even be more real than I was trying to be in the first place, because I try to be just disgustingly real right off the bat when I write my own stuff, just because it's the closest to my heart. But even then I hold back, because I don't deem it perhaps a poetic enough angle to take about a subject. But then I read Bukowski, I'm like, oh no, I could be realer than this. I could be more grotesque than this. I can use words that make me nervous. Like, this is what art is. It should make you nervous. So yeah, Bukowski gives me permission to be a little bit more a little bit more rough around the edges.
Okay.
Yeah.
I am very disappointed in you, Travis Houseless. Autobiography of Red, man.
Of
What are
course.
you talking about?
I did forget about that huge revelation
What are you
that I
talking
had when I
about?
read that. Yeah.
Yes.
It's only because I'm reading Bukowski now that I say that too. Hey. But
Yeah.
yeah, Anne Carlson, that was another one, because I was struggling with this idea for this new book about like the actual telling of my hitchhiking journey, my very first one. And I've written out 50, 60,000 words of a narrative like 5 or 6 years ago, and I hated it. I was like, I don't like my voice. I don't like all these rules and conventions. I don't know anything. I never really went to school. So I was like, oh, as soon as I read Autobiography of Red, I realized that I could just do what I wanted and write a
Yep.
poem instead of a huge book. Because I mean, that's the most difficult thing anybody can undertake. Like, props to you and every author in existence who actually writes a book, because it is soul crushingly difficult.
I realized I am encroaching on 1 million words in print.
Oh my God, Matthew.
Yeah.
Congratulations, brother. I'm very
Yeah.
sorry to hear that.
Yeah. Well, Travis House, thank you again for coming on the program. It is a pleasure to have you. Everyone, you can check out Travis's wonderful poetry in the books All I Brought Back and Peace Be the Journey. And his individual poems that you can purchase for any price are available every week at the St. John's Farmers Market. Thank you for joining us, Travis.
Thank you so much, Matthew. I really appreciate it.
No problem at all.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on again. For all of you listening, we'll be here the same time next week to talk more about business culture in St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador. Be sure to drop by and visit our guests and all the other vendors at the St. John's Farmers Market this week.